is running. All right, well, I got quite a bit done without recording. After I did the steering rack stuff, I was just kind of in put it together mode. Not really anything you guys haven't seen probably, so I just didn't really bother too much with it. Not really sure what I'll have for you guys. I kind of have a bunch of, like, a hodgepodge of videos, like cleaning the engine when it was out, doing the VVT gear. So yeah, I'll just kind of put some videos together and see where we're at. I've just been kind of tinkering around in the garage this evening, and I made this drive-by-wire pedal mount. So I think I'm gonna throw this in real quick and see how it fits with the pedal. This guy here, don't mind the hanging down wires, I'm fixing some stuff. But this guy here, it's gonna mount. I gotta do some more trimming on the rubber, but it's gonna mount there, and it's gonna mount up there where the throttle cable used to go through, and then the pedal itself will mount right to that. All right, don't mind the extra wires hanging around here. I'm doing some cleaning up around here. I still have a aluminum mess down here from drilling, but the bracket is mounted to the firewall and the pedal is mounted to the bracket. Everything's good there. I can hit the brake. I sat in it and tested it with my widest shoes. I can hit the brake and not the throttle, and I can hit the throttle and not the brake. The pedal almost goes to the floor. It stops right before. It actually has enough flex that I can get there, but I'm gonna add some kind of stop either to the back of the pedal or to the floor, just so I'm not flexing the pedal at the end there and just fatiguing it till it breaks. But I'm happy with that. The pedal is mounted freaking solid to the firewall, so now I just gotta clean up this wiring that I don't even know what it's doing. Run wires to the pedal, to the ECU, and to 5-volt and ground and stuff. But yeah, that's good progress. I think I'll clean this up and continue tomorrow. I did a lot of tinkering in the garage today, but nothing really worth recording. Like, I made that bracket, but most of it was pulling the body off my dad's race car and a couple fenders off mine, so we could get it repaired and probably get those things ready to sell. But Legend car looks pretty cool without a body on it. All right, now I've got the pedal connector all wired up, so that's nice and easy. You remember when I pointed this out when I was doing the throttle body, the wires and everything? I did the same thing with the pedal. So 1 and 2 are 5-volt, 3 is ground, 4 is pedal signal 1, and I have that going to TPS now, and then ground, and then pedal signal 2, and I have that one going to analog in 5. I like to write all this down, so that way when you're programming and everything, you can just look at your cheat sheet and put whatever wire going to what in the computer, so that way it knows. Also, since I was wiring by the ECU, I made a better mount, this big old aluminum plate, that way everything just kind of screws to it. I'm not happy with the wiring. Obviously the wiring was laid out for the old style, the ABS plastic I had on there. So now everything's kind of like out there, but I mean, it's mounted solid, so I'll cover this up with the glove box and only get in here when I need to. What's up, guys? It's another new day in the shop. I am working on the Mark III still. You already know. So I've had a couple people ask about kind of how I did the swap pieces and parts and everything. So I figured I'd just do a quick little walkthrough of that. Don't mind that the garage is a mess, you know, project season. All right, so for mounting the JZ into the Mark III, yeah, obviously for a JZ, you'll need the rear sump because our cars are front rack. So that way, because of that, there's no room for the front sump. But when you get 1JZs, I'm pretty sure all, if not most of them, come front sump. I could be wrong on the all, but most of them will come front sump. So you'll need to get the rear sump pan, so that way you can fit it in your car, obviously. in the Mark III chassis anyways, in anything with a front rack. And then for mounts, I just did the drift motion mounts. They're really easy to deal with. Drift motion's been good to me, so keep buying their parts. And then even though this car is an 89, it's a late 88 basically. So I actually have a pre-89 subframe, even though it's a facelift car, 3-piece spoiler, taillights. Everything's 89 except for the subframe. So these are actually pre-89 subframes, or these are actually pre-89 engine mounts. And obviously they do have 89 to 93 mounts. And then I did the polyurethane bushings just to kind of stiffen it up, but I didn't want it to be completely solid. It still is a road car. I was running a 19.5 pound flywheel, but I just picked up this 14-pound flywheel for going back together. And then a Clutchmasters FX 400 clutch, which is, I like the Clutchmasters. They just rebuild the Toyota Asen pressure plate. This grinding here, we're not going to worry about that. That was my own goof up when I put this together the first time. But yeah, now everything should be good there. What else? I relocated the alternator over here. I didn't have to. It's just the Mark III, the wiring's already right there for the alternator. So I just used the factory wiring and changed the connector on it. Then for the bell housing, obviously I have the R154. So I just got the R154 to JZ bell housing. And that's pretty much that. Everything's really easy for these because you can just get stuff to bolt it in basically any chassis. And then especially a Supra, you know, it's supposed to have a JZ. 7M guys, don't hate me for that. Also for the swap, this is the, I think I've already said it in a video, but this is the Odyssey Fab downpipe, left-hand drive downpipe. And it actually works really well. It comes out, it looks like it's going to be in the way and hit the back of the subframe, but with a sharp enough bend and the V-band in the right spot, it does actually perfectly clear that subframe back there. Alright, to start I have all my timing marks lined up. Okay, I got this line on the crank lined up, and then both cam sprockets lined up right with the marks. So then I just want to take these 5 bolts out. Alright, so those 5 bolts come out. So when these come off, it'll twist off. And I'm going to use this bottom hole, this little opening here, and wherever it touches at first, or at the last moment, wherever it comes off at, I'm going to mark. That way I know when I go back on, I just line up my teeth with that mark and drop it in. Oh. Alright, so see how it spins? It's got that helical gear. So I'm going to take this, pull it to where it comes off. Oh, that was it, and I missed it. So that came off right about here. So when I go back on, I'll just line up that mark, and it'll spin itself on ideally. This right here is that gasket that leaks like crazy. It's got a recess in here where it sits, but it gets all old and crusty like that. This thing is like plastic, and it just shoots oil all out of there. So I'm gonna get this all cleaned up real quick. So as you can see, This is really just plastic at this point. It just chips off. It's not bad. It's just what old cars do, old rubber does. Alright, so I got that well cleaned up. It's all nice and flat. So I'm going to throw the gasket in there, the O-ring. And we'll see if we can get it to just sit nicely right here in this seal groove. This is fun because the O-ring kind of needs stretched a little bit, so it pops right out of that groove. So let's give her a little bit of light stretching here until we get it to where it sits in that groove and doesn't fall out. So yeah, that stretching was enough to do it right there. You don't want to do too much. But now you see that O-ring sits right in there, just like it's supposed to now. Where before I stretched it, it was a little tight. So you want to be gentle, because if you knock this around too much, that seal might fall out. My mark is gone, so that's cool. We'll just throw this on about where it came off. It's got a missing tooth kind of set up here. So I'm just going to line up the missing tooth with that guy. And it'll go on. And it twists in. Comes off just like it did. O-ring stayed in place. I'm just kind of checking to make sure the O-ring stays where I wanted it to. And it seems to be. So now I'll just put those bolts back in for the VVT gear. What are you doing? He's a good boy. I just got it snugged up with the impact. I'm going to hand tighten those bolts. So I'm going to tighten these. Going across just to make sure it stays nice and flat in there as you're torquing it down. Alright, the elbow clicks, so those are torqued to spec. Alright, so I went ahead and finished buttoning up the front of the engine. Put the covers on, put the rest of the accessory bolts back in, the pulley on, belt on. So the front of the engine is ready to go back in. Once I have it back up on the cherry picker, I'll go ahead and change that rear main seal. And engine should be completely ready to mate back up to the transmission and go back in the car. I went ahead and put the coilover back in and tightened all the control arm bolts, so everything is sucked up. I should go inside and get ready for bed, but I'm gonna throw this brake on real quick just to get an idea of the look. Alright, now we got the Woolwood caliper on with the pads and the 13-inch rotors. All I gotta do now is put a fitting in here, run the new lines up wherever they go, right here, and then up to that. So I'll probably do that not on camera. So for now, I'm gonna call it a night. So I started getting the brake lines in, but I got to figure out how I want to route them and tie it. I think I'm gonna tie it right here to the coilover somehow, and it just to make sure I have enough for the angle. It gets kind of tight in some spots, so I gotta throw the brake line on the other side, tie them up. I still gotta grind this edge off for the amount of angle I get now. So not bad, things are coming along. Let's get to it. I've just been kind of tinkering around in the garage this evening, and I made this drive-by-wire pedal mount. So I think I'm gonna throw this in real quick and see how it fits with the pedal. This guy here, don't mind the hanging down wires, I'm fixing some stuff. But this guy here, just gonna mount. I gotta do some more trimming on the rubber. But it's gonna mount there, and it's gonna mount up there where the throttle cable used to go through. And then the pedal itself will mount right to that. I have the engine all buttoned up. I decided to give the pipes kind of a brushed, almost frosty look, just because they were, you know, scratched, shiny, didn't look very good. So I hit it with some Scotch-Brite and WD to give it some brush. Also did a quick little scuff on the radiator just to make it somewhat match. Cleaned up the valve covers, got the stains off, cleaned off the brackets for the strut brace, and then painted those. Finished the intercooler top mounts. I'm thinking I'm going to make a one of the cooling plates right here. But also painted the rear calipers so that way they match the front a little better. So that way I don't have red in the back, silver in the front. Finished up putting the interior back together, and then I also did all my drive-by-wire calibration. I upgraded my EMU black firmware to version 3, so I've just been kind of getting the tune all written up for that. I'm still working on the tune and such with the drive-by-wire. Everything's different, especially with the V3 software, but you can hear the throttle body moves with the pedal, and it'll run, but it kind of hesitates when you come on to throttle, so sometimes it'll die. So I gotta figure that out. I'm not much of a tuner. I already kind of let it warm up. Don't think I did that cold. But yeah, I'm not much of a tuner, so at least at this point I could have my tuner take a look and we can go from there. But yeah, she's coming right along. She at least runs again. Runs, probably drives. I gotta bleed the brakes again. Bleed the brakes again just because I did it with my vacuum bleeder. And then after I pumped the brakes and let them sit a little bit, it felt like I had some air still in them. So I think I'm gonna do the old 2-person pump hold. You know, everyone knows how to bleed brakes. But yeah, car is really coming together. It's I'm waiting on a seal for the speedometer gear where it goes into the trans. I tried to find an O-ring that fit, but it obviously didn't work because I'm leaking. So I got the right one coming, hopefully tomorrow. But once I get that replaced, bleed the brakes, start working with my tuner, and I could start driving it, breaking in the trans, and then hopefully be ready by the drift event in, what month is it now? March? April, May. In 2 months. 2 months is a drift event. First one of the season. So feeling pretty good. I'm well ahead. Cool. Thanks.